Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Sanjana Prabhakar. She is with Product Development Specialist with Nasdaq Investment Intelligence to discuss performance insight into the suite of the Nasdaq indexes for the month of November, which ended up being the best month of the year. Sanjana, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks. And before we get into your slides here, give us a brief overview of the activity you noticed in November.
Sure, Jill. So as you mentioned, November proved to be the best month for the Nasdaq 100. It recorded a gain of 10.7%, breaking 3 consecutive months of declines. And the Nasdaq 100 is now up 45.8% year to date, driven largely by AI optimism, which we covered in our previous trade talks. And this rally that we saw in the month of November was actually quite a stark reversal from the recent sell-off we saw, where investors were weighed down by concerns surrounding higher yields in the conflict in the Middle East.
All right, let's take a look at the slides here. You're starting off with the Nasdaq featured indexes.
Sure. So providing a very quick summary of the suite of indexes that we have. So recall, we track 107 indexes ranging from a thematic suite of indexes to ESG and dividend and income. So what you see in this first slide here is our featured indexes. As you can see, there were double-digit gains across all but 2 of the Nasdaq featured indexes. What is quite noteworthy is the performance of the KBW index, which was the second best performer this month, gaining an impressive 14.9% after a string of declines this year. What you can also see here is the Nasdaq 100 Dorsey Wright Momentum Index was a relative outperformer, up 15%. What's also pretty interesting here is the dispersion between the Nasdaq 100 tech sector and the Nasdaq 100 X-tech sector. As you can see, it's about 9 percentage points, I think, which illustrates quite nicely the strength of the technology sector. On average, this suite of indexes registered an average gain of 7.5%. And to your right, you can see the Nasdaq Global Indexes. Returns were quite impressive here as well, averaging 8.9%. You see the Nasdaq Europe Index, the relative outperformer of the 9 global indexes, up 9.8%, while the Nasdaq US Mid Cap was up 9.6%. So European markets actually finished their best month since January, driven by strength in the mining sector and lower than expected inflation data. What's also interesting is the dispersion between emerging markets and developed markets. As you can see, it was only a mere 2 percentage points. With our Nordic suite, you see impressive performance as well, with the indexes gaining 6.9% on average. You see the OMX Stockholm Index, relative outperformer, up 7.5%.
All right, and moving along, let's talk about some of the thematic indexes and some of the trends that you noticed there.
Sure. So this is pretty interesting as well. Here you see we have captured the performance of the thematic ESG, green economy, and options indexes. As you can see here, the thematic ESG indexes posted average gains of 6.8%. This is actually quite interesting. If you recall, thematic ESG stocks had fallen out of favor this year due to the sector's sensitivity to high interest rates and supply chain problems. With new data trickling in that inflation is cooled and the Fed is likely to lower interest rates, we see that a significant overhang has been removed, and we saw the thematic ESG stocks rally in November with the Nasdaq OMX Clean Edge Smart Grid Infrastructure Index and Clean Edge Water Indexes relative outperformers, each registering gains of 12%. With our green economy suite, you see the green economy indexes registered average gains of 12.3%, with the water index, the relative outperformer, and the green economy index, the relative underperformer, up 10.8%. And with our option suite, again, very impressive performance. All but one index in the Nasdaq option suite finished in the green with an average gain of 4.7%.
And moving along to dividend and income indexes here, I mean, certainly coming back into favor with what's happening with the Fed.
Yes, absolutely. As you mentioned, these stocks have become more appealing of late, as it's become more likely that the Fed will end its rate hikes, sending yields lower and encouraging investors to look at dividend-paying stocks for income. So as you can see here, they were all up for the month of November. And on average, they were up 8%. What's worth highlighting here is the tech dividend index, which has been the top performer with gains of 11%. Yeah, and if you look at our Nasdaq Dorsey Right indexes, you see that all but one index in the relative strength dividend suite were up. You see the Dorsey Right Consumer Cyclicals Technical Leaders Index, which was up 18.4%, and on average, the index suite was up 8.9%.
And finally, let's take a look at thematic and tech indexes. I thought it was interesting to see digital payments as one of the top performers, considering our coverage on Trade Talks with FinTech. It certainly does align with that.
Yes, absolutely. If you can see here, the Nasdaq CTA Global Digital Payments Index gained 23% and was the relative outperformer. We did see strong retail data and strong e-commerce sales in the recent months, which has made digital payment stocks more attractive. And also, what you can see here is what's quite interesting is that AI, which has dominated within the suite of the Nasdaq thematic tech indexes thus far this year, posted impressive double-digit gains. Here you see the Nasdaq CTA Artificial Intelligence Index, the second best performer within the thematic lineup, registering gains of 16%. After some fading excitement surrounding AI in the recent months, the sentiment appears to have turned positive again ahead of earnings. Semiconductors as a theme also gained favor among investors, with the Philex Semiconductor and Nasdaq US Smart Semiconductor Index registering gains of 15.8 and 15.6%. And these stocks got a boost from the rollout of the CHIPS Act funding most recently. And the relative underperformer of the thematic lineup was the Nasdaq Biotech Index, which registered gains of 4.9%.
All right, Sanjana, I appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you very much.